Oh!
Okay, that was that. Oh. What up, world? This is Dominic Syracuse. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. I am an actor, stand-up comedian, and cognitive behavioral specialist, and I am so stoked to be breaking down this monologue that Chris Rock set the internet on fire with this weekend on SNL. Everybody's been talking to me about this monologue. I mean, I've had stand-up buddies reach out and say he's had the joke of the year. He's had the set of the year. I had one buddy say, yo, man, he's taken every big news headline all year long, and he just wrapped it up in 8 minutes, which doesn't surprise me because that's what Chris Rock does. If you've seen that documentary on Netflix with him and Kevin Hart, he literally has news stories all over his desk, and he will change his set that day if he writes a joke about something going on in the news.
And by the way, sometimes something happens in the news.
You have jokes on the bench.
I have jokes on the bench.
But here's the thing. I actually made a 20-minute reaction to this video where I played the video on the screen, and YouTube took it down immediately because apparently SNL is like, the only people that are allowed to make videos about our show is us. So they stopped that quick. But there's so much good in this video that I want to break down because I think what Chris Rock is doing is so important, especially from an art therapy perspective, that I had to make another video talking about what I talked about in that video. So it's kind of like videoception, you know? It's sort of like Tenacious D. This is not the video. This is just a tribute to the video. You know what I mean? So if you haven't seen Chris Rock's monologue on SNL, check it out. I'll link it right here. But I want to break down some things that Chris Rock does better than anyone else on earth. I want to talk about why psychologically it's so important for us to laugh, but also as a society to talk about some of the stuff Rock was talking about in the monologue in a constructive way and why comedy is the best way to do that. So I know they say comedy's like a frog. If you dissect it, it dies. So maybe this video is just me killing comedy. If I do it right, not only will you appreciate Chris Rock more as the legend that he is, but also maybe gain some healthy mental health perspectives along the way. Think we can do it? Sick. Let's dive in. So first off, and of course, he takes aim at the CEO assassination. No pun intended with that one. But he talks about how we caught the alleged assassin, Luigi Mangione, I think is his name, which so many people are surprised that this guy could be an assassin because a lot of things. He's educated. His family works in healthcare from what I heard and all this stuff. But I'm sorry, Luigi Mangione is the name of every assassin from every Martin Scorsese movie. So that doesn't surprise me at all. But what Rock points out is how the internet is talking about how good looking this guy is. In fact, in the episode of Saturday Night Live, they open up thirst trapping over this dude. I mean, look at him. He looks like who they cast if they were reimagining Mario Brothers, but like in a Magic Mike strip show. But what Rock points out is that the internet is making this guy out to be a folk hero. And he says if he looked like Jonah Hill, he would have already gotten the chair. I feel like there was another famous example of him making fun of a celebrity and it didn't work out well for him. But actually, Chris Rock has a long history of this. At the Oscars, believe it or not, long before the infamous slap, he hosted the Oscars in 1999, and he made a dig at Jude Law. And since then, Jude Law's come out and said that actually messed with him for his career in Hollywood. He always had that in the back of his mind. But that's what Rock does, whether he gets slapped or not. He roasts celebrities. He makes jokes about things that other people feel like he shouldn't make jokes about. And that's what he's made his whole career on, whether it was Bring the Pain or Bigger and Blacker or Never Scared. He has this amazing way of taking what's going on and making amazing punchlines out of it. We'll get to more details on that soon. But I want to talk about the question everybody asks of what is and isn't too much when you're joking about something. I mean, Rock says it himself in his next fire line. He talks about Brian Thompson, the United Health CEO himself, and he says he feels so bad. You know, this guy's got a family and he's a human being that we saw gunned down through surveillance footage. And then he flips it and says, but you know, sometimes drug dealers get shot. And that's the joke that set the internet on fire. That's what everybody says. That was the joke of the year. Blah, 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 blah. But was that too much? I say no, and I'm going to spend the rest of this video explaining why. First of all, what makes Chris Rock a legend is his ability to take these contentious things that we're talking about in the news and turn them into a joke that makes a good point. It doesn't matter if it was the O.J. Simpson trial in the 90s.
That shit was about fame. Because if O.J. wasn't famous, he'd be in jail right now. If O.J. drove a bus, he wouldn't even be O.J. He'd be Orenthal, the bus driving murderer.
The Iraq War in the early 2000s.
And like, we gotta go to Iraq, because they the most dangerous country on earth. They the most dangerous regime in the world. If they so dangerous, how come it only took 2 weeks to take over the whole fucking country? Man, you couldn't take over Baltimore in 2 weeks.
Or even the Black Lives Matter movement starting 10 years ago.
I know it's hard being a cop. I know it's hard. I know that shit's dangerous. But some jobs can't have bad apples. Okay? Some jobs, everybody gotta be good. Like pilots.
Whenever there's a massive news story that we in society are having a huge philosophical debate about, Chris Rock is able to take it, flip it on its head, and make you see it from a different point of view, a different perspective. And what that forces you to do is it forces you to think about it in a different way, right? I mean, I used to live in Los Angeles. I lived on a gang initiation street. There were drive-by shootings all of the time. And I never saw one of those people be on the news. The only attention they got were the vigils in my neighborhood after they got shot. But I turned on the news, I saw nothing. But now this rich CEO gets shot and it's the biggest story out there. And in a single line, Chris Rock is able to take both arguments and make you think about it in a different way. This is rooted in the history of comedy, and it literally goes back to the king and queen times. The role of the jester. You've heard people say, I'm saying this in jest. That the word jest comes from jester, and the jester was the only person allowed to make fun of the king. And the way he did it was he stood back from the rest of the crowd. He was able to just observe what was going on rather than being put in the middle of it. And when you see it from a different perspective, you're able to joke about it. Nobody put this better than the comic legend, George Carlin. Those are my two comic heroes. When I first started in stand-up comedy, those were the two dudes that I watched over and over and over to see how it was done. It was Chris Rock and George Carlin. Listen to what Carlin said about the importance of perspective for a comedian.
I found a very liberating position for myself as an artist. That gave me a lot of freedom from a kind of distant platform to be sort of amused, to do what it's going to do. And I'll enjoy it as an entertainer.
And in psychology, what Carlin's talking about here is something called the actor-observer bias. And what it means is when you're the actor, when you're the person in the middle of something, you can't see, you're only focused on solving whatever problem you're in, right? But when you're the observer, when you take a step back, you're not as emotionally invested in it, so you're able to take a fresh perspective. When I teach this in my workshops, I liken it to rock climbing. If you've ever been rock climbing, when you're watching someone rock climb, you're just like, dude, put your foot there. I can see it so clearly. But when you're the one actually doing the rock climbing, you're just doing your best to not have an anxiety attack on the side of a mountain. And in a lot of ways, life is the exact same way. That's how the news is. That's how our society is. We are bombarded with negative news all the time. And it creates this illusion that the world is being set on fire. Everything is crazy right now. Things have never been more crazy than they are right now. Oh my gosh, what's going on? But when you take a step back and actually observe it, it's like the band Incubus said.
To obtain a bird's eye is to turn a blizzard to a breeze.
And so in this SNL monologue, Chris Rock does this amazingly. I mean, he talks about the Menendez Brothers trial, and he says they're going to get deported with Trump in office. And then he talks about baseball players getting $700 billion contracts and likens that to slavery. He says that you used to be able to get a whole bushel for that much, right? And then he even talks about Elon Musk, says he's the richest African American, and he's going to help Trump get people out. And nobody knows how to get people out like South Africans. Now, right here, I can't play the clip because it's going to get taken down, but I just want to play the clip of the audience. Listen to the audience's reaction after he makes that joke. First, here's how they reacted when he just says Elon Musk is the richest African American. Got a good laugh. And then he says, nobody knows how to get rid of people like South Africans. Hear how the crowd has that guttural groan? From an outsider, you might think the crowd didn't like that joke, and that's a bad thing. But another stand-up legend, Dave Chappelle, said, stand-up comedians are musicians, and their instrument is the audience. Listen to how Chris Rock played the audience right there. Just like a master musician, you don't want to just make one sound. He's a conductor. Sometimes he makes it high, sometimes he makes it low. I mean, honestly, you have to go watch the monologue if you haven't seen it, because nobody can deliver like this guy can, and nobody can get away with some of the stuff he says like he can.
How come Chris Rock can do a routine and everybody finds it hilarious and groundbreaking, and then I go and do the exact same routine, same comedic timing, and people file a complaint to corporate?
Here's why all of this is so important, and here's why I was so passionate about making this video, even if I don't get to show the actual clips. It's because we need to laugh right now. There is so much crazy stuff going on in the news, and we are bombarded with it every single day. You know, I've taken class after class after class on how to grow your YouTube following, how to get more followers online, how to reach more people as an entertainer. And the general consensus is, number one, make sure that your headline invokes fear. Because if people are afraid, they've got to click. And then also they say, make sure what you're talking about causes contention. Because if it's contentious, people will fight in the comments, and the more engagement you get on a video, the more the algorithm pushes it out. So we are living in a time right now where the news and the media we are getting all over, whether it's on TV or social media, has an algorithm behind it that's encouraging fear and contention. That's why it seems like in the past 2 or 3 years, the world is just falling apart. And I'm not saying it's not. We could get into all of the ways that there's terrible things happening. But the Dalai Lama made an amazing point. They asked him, how can you be so happy and have such hope in humanity when you turn on the news and see all this terrible stuff? And the Dalai Lama said, well, that's why it's called news, because it's out of the ordinary. If it was ordinary, it wouldn't be news. And what's ordinary, what's common, is that there are billions of people on this earth that woke up, got enough food, have a place to stay, have families that love them, and went to sleep peaceful at night and nothing bad happened to them. And it's actually the vast majority. But that's not news, right? What's news is this country is in war and this terrible shooting happened and this da-da-da-da-da-da. And when we open our eyes to see that there's 350 million people in the United States where I'm filming this video, and I'll say a generous 349 million of them, which gives, by the way, 1 million of them freedom in this example to do terrible things. 349 million are not murderers. They're not killers. They're not evil. They're just regular people trying to enjoy their life safely happening. But when you highlight only what's going wrong, only the problems in the world, it creates the illusion that the entire world is messed up. But Chris Rock summed up everything I'm trying to say here with one joke that really blew me away. He was talking about Trump, and he was talking about how so many people are worried that Trump is so undignified and he's going to make a mockery of the presidency. And Chris Rock says, there have been presidents that showed up to inaugurations with pregnant slaves. And I'm just talking about Bill Clinton. And again, that's him playing the crowd. But what he's doing is he's forcing us to look at what's going on from a fresh perspective. And he makes such a good point. Yes, Trump survived an assassination attempt this year. That is wild and terrible. And we can't encourage political violence. That was the first time that's happened since the 60s. But if you look at our history, politicians used to shoot each other when they didn't get along. Spoiler alert, that's how Hamilton ends. So even though things aren't perfect right now, we are all working together to try to make things better. And the only way we can do that, we have to move away from contention culture. We have to move away from cancel culture, and we have to move towards conversation culture, where we're actually able to have conversations with people that we disagree with. That's the only way we are going to heal the cultural conversation in our country right now. And laughter's the best way to do it. Mark Twain said it best. He said, tell them the truth, but when you do, make them laugh or they'll kill you. That's what Chris Rock does better than anybody. He listened to Mark Twain, and no matter who he talks about and who he makes laugh, he also needs to remember this piece of advice.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, ring the bell so you know when we're doing stuff. I am breaking down videos all of the time from a cognitive behavioral perspective and from an entertainer's perspective. Also, if you'd like to know more about the work I do with mental health, check out this playlist right here and some of these videos. Also, you can check out my alternative channel, Cog B Theater. There's a lot of things on there. If you'd like more mental health videos, let me know. Let me know what it is you're struggling with and what you'd like me to make content on. I'm here for you. Also, if you'd like to laugh right now, check out some of my stand-up that's around here. Check out my channel. I'm going to be posting long and short form videos weekly. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, remember, this machine kills fascists.